Hello out there, you fantastic folks. Jonathan here from Roll for Crit with another review of a Marvel Legendary expansion. This time it's Annihilation, which sees the return of the Fantastic Four, along with some of their old keywords and some new stuff as well. This is the first Fantastic Four themed set since the original Fantastic Four expansion, which was like the second or third expansion ever for Legendary, and still one of my favorites. I really enjoyed that one. So this is the successor to it. This is just like all the other small box Legendary expansions. It comes with 5 new heroes, as well as 2 new masterminds, 2 new villain groups, and some schemes in there. If you're new to the Marvel deck building game, then I recommend you go back and watch some other videos on our channel. We've got a how to play for it, as well as I did a full rundown of 25 expansions before the last few came out. If you want to get an idea for the rules and the feel of the game, it is a Marvel themed deck building game, and this is a new set for it. But I'm just going to talk about the new stuff that's in this and not the game as a whole. So if you're new, look elsewhere first and then come back here. Rather than go through each keyword one at a time, I'm going to walk you through the new heroes and villains included here, and we'll cover the new keywords and abilities as we go. We're going to see those on all of the cards. So let's start with probably my favorite hero group, and pretty much the star of this set, I would argue, is the Fantastic Four themselves. This is actually Fantastic Four United, and unlike in the original set when they each had their own individual hero group, here you have all of the Fantastic Four members available in one group. So you can play with all 4 of them along with plenty of other heroes as you would like. And they bring back the focus ability in a big way. Some of them, like Human Torch, even have multiple options for you to use focus on. They also continue the theme of having a cost of 4, and in particular, Invisible Woman will reward you for using cards that cost 4. So these are still going to synergize well with the original Fantastic Four groups. And they do kind of mimic what those original hero cards did on their individual cards. So Human Torch gives you more attack ability, maybe results in you getting a wound or 2. Mr. Fantastic, who is the big card here, lets you draw cards, also gets you a bunch of attack power for the Mastermind. I think this is a really strong card for 7 cost, actually. So really fun stuff, in my opinion. A nice through line from the original set. It's going to feel very familiar. You'll feel right at home if you enjoyed the original Fantastic Four. Next, we have another group combination set, the Heralds of Galactus. So in this storyline, we have the Heralds of Galactus working alongside the Fantastic Four. You can see I'm going through, of course, all the repeats of different copies of cards in here, trying to find that big one to show off. There it is, Galactus Hungers. We will talk about that because it's pretty interesting. Sorry about this mess here, but you can see most of the cards spread out. And Heralds of Galactus also makes use of that focus keyword. They're pretty similar to the Fantastic Four set in that regard. They do have a couple special abilities. For instance, Silver Surfer allows you to swap villains, move them around to different spaces, which could be very useful, especially considering the Conqueror keyword, which returns in this set. Conqueror keyword means that if there's a villain in the specified space, you get some kind of a bonus. So for instance, Firelord here gets an extra 2 attack power if there is a villain in the bridge space. He also has some text here which tells you that if in fact there is a destroyed city space, that still counts for your Conqueror ability. And that's important to know because in this Annihilation set, there are a couple of ways we'll get to that city spaces can get destroyed. So this can actually be very useful depending on the set you're playing with. In other sets, Firelord might be still good, but maybe take a little bit longer to build up. Now you've got this big card here, Galactus Hungers. This one is kind of crazy. This is one of those ways you can destroy spaces. If you play this along with another Herald card on your turn, then you destroy a city space and get some extra attack power. And if you manage to destroy all of the city spaces with this card, you as the player win the game, evil loses, everyone else loses, only you are the winner. So it's another one of these. There's a few of these in Legendary cards that allow one player to kind of betray everybody else in spectacular fashion, which you might love or hate. I think it's a cute idea. They actually have another card in this set, Stardust, which if you get 11 focus, 11 recruit points, you can spend it to find this card anywhere. It doesn't even matter if it's in your deck. It could be in the HQ, and you get to just take it from that and put it on top of your deck. So there is a way for you to try to get this faster and manipulate it so you can destroy the entire world, if that's what you're into. So that's Heralds of Galactus, some interesting, unique stuff there. You've got the Super Scroll, which is another new one. This one has that Conqueror keyword in a few new ways, and it has a little bit of a twist on the Focus ability. In this set, Focus does not use the recruit points. Instead, it uses attack points, which I think is novel. So you basically get the same idea. You know how this ability works, but it's a bit of a twist. He's more focused on attack power. So if that's the kind of thing you want to build for, he will help you out with that. So it's pretty straightforward, but I think a nice complement to the other sets that come in this expansion. Now you have final two here. These are the Fantastic Four's kids that may be from the future or something. I don't know. I'm not fully up to date on my Fantastic Four youth lore. People out there will know what these are. It's Psylord and Brainstorm. And each of them have different abilities. Brainstorm brings back the woman, sometimes it's man out of time. In this case, it's woman out of time keyword, which came from the Captain America set, which means that after you play this card, you put it aside and you get to play it again at the beginning of the following turn. So that's a pretty fun ability that allows you to get some extra use out of a card. Also has some ways for you to look through your deck and KO cards, which is always useful. Then there's, as I said, Psylord. Psylord has a lot of ways for you to look through the villain deck, in fact. And depending on what the card at the top of the villain deck is, you get some kind of a different effect. So depending on the card, maybe if it's a bystander, you get to rescue that bystander. If it's a villain, you can attack that villain. If it's a Master Strike, you can actually cancel that Master Strike and replace it with an extra bystander on top of the deck. So kind of a bit of a risk, a bit of a gamble there, because it's hard to know exactly what's going to be on top of that deck. But for instance, if you do pull that off and you get to cancel a whole Master Strike from the villain deck, that can be really strong and feel really good. He also has a bunch of the man out of time keywords. So he's another one where if you build up enough, he will be useful again and again. You'll be able to have a bunch of cards that carry over into future turns, which is pretty cool. As I said, there are also some villains in here. We have two new sets, the Timelines of Kang and the Annihilation Wave, and both go along with, respectively, the Kang Mastermind and the Annihilus Mastermind. And there's some synergy between these two. Annihilus uses this new keyword called Momentum. Momentum means that if a villain moves into a new city space, they have some extra power. So the first turn they come out, and then if they ever get pushed or swapped or anything for any reason, if they end up in a new space, they have an extra ability. They're harder to defeat on that turn. This is something that in order to keep track of, they recommend you push the card up a little bit in the space. I highly recommend that because otherwise you will definitely forget who has momentum or doesn't. That can be confusing. So that's a decent way to take care of it, although it can be a little bit messy. And Annihilus, for anyone who has momentum in the field, he gets an extra 2 health or attack points. So it's pretty scary. You want to try to clear the field in order to fight him. Kang has some cool stuff. He uses the Conqueror keyword. He also has ways to turn the city into different spaces. Will get time incursion cards, and that will affect you if villains are in those spots. He'll become more powerful. Essentially, you just mark them with a Master Strike. That's how you know they're a time incursion space. Doesn't really do much beyond helping out Kang. I also think one thing that's interesting about these is they have ways to send your own heroes as men or women out of time. So as a result of fighting them, or maybe as an ambush, they will send one of your cards out of time. So it's an interesting thing because it's definitely a punishment. It could hurt your current turn, but it might help you out a little bit on the following turn. So there's an interesting dynamic there where it's a punishment, but it could have its consolation prize as well. Finally, there are 4 new schemes in here, and some of them are pretty creative, pretty weird. There's one that I like called Put Humanity on Trial, wherein when a scheme twist comes up, it actually results in you having to complete some kind of a challenge. So it might say, buy a card that's 5 cost or higher, or defeat a villain worth so many victory points. And if you fail to do it, then a bystander becomes a juror who believes humanity should be destroyed. And if too many of them believe that, humanity is destroyed. So I really like having kind of a guideline, a direction, a challenge that you're trying to accomplish on your turn, as opposed to just, doing whatever you're trying to do. I think that's kind of neat. There's another one called Breach Parallel Dimensions, which has you separating the villain deck into like a dozen different piles, each with different numbers of cards, and you're drawing from those separate piles instead of one unified deck. And if too many of them run out, you lose. This one is interesting, but it feels like one of those ones that's them running out of ideas for schemes because it's just a little unwieldy. There's a lot going on with it. I don't know. I thought it was kind of too much. And then there are some more basic ones that I enjoyed. Pulse waves from the negative zone just kind of alternates, making the game easier or harder when a twist comes out. Things might be worth more, harder to buy or easier to buy, or harder to kill or easier to kill. Kind of an interesting seesaw effect there. And then Sneak Attack the Heroes' Homes. This one is cool because each player actually gets to start with a few hero cards in their deck. So this is really the only way I can think of in Legendary wherein you start with a more individualized, personalized deck with some different things in it to start with, and then you can keep building it from there. But that's a really cool way to put a different kind of a twist on the game and doesn't change the overall rules too much or overcomplicate things. But if you're someone, maybe you've played Legendary a million times, you're tired of looking at the same basic starting cards every time you play, this can add a little bit of spice to it. Fantastic Four, the original expansion, I think, as I said, is one of my favorites of Legendary, so I had high hopes for this one, just like with the recent expansion that followed up on the Shards mechanic from the Guardians of the Galaxy set. I was excited to see them bringing back focus in a different way, adding new characters. I don't think this set, for me, is quite as successful as that one was in resurrecting an old keyword, mostly because there are a couple heroes in here that kind of fell flat for me, namely Brainstorm and Psy Lord. Can't even remember his name, Psy Lord, Psy Lord I think is just too much of a gamble. I didn't really have that much fun or success dealing with the villain deck. I think if you paired him with certain other heroes that let you manipulate it in different ways, he might be more powerful, but I just didn't find it super fun. I did love the Fantastic Four United. I think Heralds of Galactus is great, but they're something I would want to throw in once in a while, but they're not like an all-timer for me. And Super Scroll is fine, but nothing that I feel like I can't live without. I do think the new masterminds and villains have pretty interesting abilities, and they make some good variability for your different sets. I think it is worth buying this probably to have those at least, along with that other Fantastic Four set, which I did enjoy. And it's just nice to have more of that same keyword if you really like the Fantastic Four characters. You will again want this because now they have more different heroes that they can bounce off of and more things that they can work with instead of just having to stand with each other, which they kind of felt like they did back then. So ultimately, I think it's a good set. It's not a great set, but if you do love that focus keyword, this brings it back. You're going to want to try this out. And as I said, there are some unique things in here. There are some schemes that I enjoyed. Not too bad. Definitely my favorite stuff from it was in terms of the hero, the Fantastic Four United. But I guess that's just because I already like the original Fantastic Four characters, so it's almost a cheat because it really is just like a condensed version of those characters in one set. And I guess maybe that's what kind of disappoints me is my favorite thing from this is kind of something that was already in the game, just in a different format. But maybe that says more about me than it does this set. Maybe over time, combining these characters with different ones, different characters from other past sets will bring out different abilities in them, as is often the case with Marvel Legendary because there are just a ton of these cards. But still, if you're a huge Legendary fan, you're going to want to pick this up. If you're just starting out your collection, I would put this one a little further back. Definitely go with the original Fantastic Four if it's available before this. But if you do pick this one up, you won't be too disappointed. Some people might really like that Psylord, I don't know, or Brainstorm. You tell me what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your individual thoughts about the heroes in this set, the different keywords, which ones you like or don't like, and what you'd like to see Legendary do in the future. Otherwise, that's it for my review. I'm Jonathan, and this has been Roll for Crit. If you liked this video, then like the video and subscribe to our channel. That would be awesome of you. We've also got a Patreon page, so we thank our Patreon supporters who also get access to some cool bonus content. If you want to see more of us, we are streaming live on Twitch and a separate YouTube channel every single week. Check that all out at rollforcrit.com/live.